Hey, what's going on, Warhammer World? This is Obsidian Anubis, and I'm back with another Ninth Age video. This is actually not a battle report, so if that's what you're looking for. I'm sorry to disappoint, although I do have one in the banks, so hopefully later this weekend I will upload that, so you guys can look at that. This is actually going to be an OFC tournament recap. So I just finished the OFCC tournament videos, and so this is just going to be a recount of my games, what I think I've learned from the experience, and where I'm going to go in the next few months. So just to give you an overview, this is the army I took. So it was a 2,500 point army. It was a feral orc themed army. So on the top of that left hill, I have my feral orc general Sharnuk swine rider. Next to him, with the guy with the great axe, that's actually my BSB Saragoth. I have two other characters. One is a wizard shaman on a boar down by the spiders, and the other is an iron orc chief who's actually just to the right of this picture. You can just kind of see the handle of his weapon, but he's actually cropped out. I gave him the wizarding hood, so he was kind of a fighty wizardy character. For core, I had three main blocks. Well, not for core, but for the heart of my army, I had three main blocks. I had a group of 33 feral orc biggins or Ed Bashers, excuse me, with two hand weapons, the Relentless Icon and the Big Stabba. I also had a group of 46 cave goblins with three Madgets, and then a group of 25 iron orcs with Folkman and the Iron Hide Totem, so they had a 5-up board save against shooting. For auxiliaries, I had a group of 20 skirmishing goblins in the back left. Also the Arachnarok with my double D rock is in the center of the picture. A giant, a group of 5 feral orc boar boys. They were more of a bunker for my wizard than they were actually an auxiliary. And then 5 scouting foresty desert goblins. And then for artillery, I had one Git launcher, which is on the left, which is on the right hill. So this is the army I took. And let's go ahead and see what I did. So my first matchup was against Saurian Ancients. So those of you who watch my channel know that I play Saurian Ancients a lot. So I knew pretty well how this army was going to play, how my opponent would kind of... I mean, I obviously never played my opponent before. He was a fantastic guy, by the way. This is the first time I've ever played in a large tournament scene, and so he was really helpful in helping me get into the scene. And then, I mean, he was just a great first player. Couldn't have asked for a better player to start off with. So you can kind of see what he brought to the list. In the end, though, it ended up being a 20-0 major victory for Sharnuk and his horde. I think some of the reasons that led up to this is just I had a very fighty army, my opponent had a very fighty army, and ferals are hard to beat in close combat. If they can get you into close combat, they can do a lot of damage. It also helped that I was familiar with my opponent's army, Saurian Ancients, so I could kind of know how my opponent would play it, or at least how I would play it if I was playing Saurian Ancients. And Saurian Ancients is one of my armies I do play, so I'm very familiar with it. So I think that helped. For my second army, I ended up fighting the Ringer, who was in charge of it, and he bought a Beastman list. Because he was the Ringer, he didn't have his army set up on display, so I didn't get a picture of that. But this is one of my favorite pictures from the battle report 2. This is when my Iron Orc's on top of the hill, and he's charging his Minotaurs up the hill towards them after they had just defeated my Feral Orcs. So this was a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. This part really was just really enjoyable. Overall, though, it ended up being a 5-15 Sharnuk defeat. So I did lose this battle, but I took some of his troops down with me, so at least it wasn't complete tabling. So that was good. I think one of the things that hurt me here is I think my opponent just outplayed me better. That plain and simple. I mean, we got in contact with my Minotaurs versus, well, excuse me, my opponent's Minotaurs versus my Feral Orc Horde, and that's the matchup I was looking for because I knew he would do a lot of damage, but I knew I could do a lot of damage. Ferals do a lot of damage, and in the end, he just outplayed me because he had his auxiliary there, so they could come in with the flanks with all the chariots and injure my Ferals. He managed to keep my Iron Orcs out of the combat for long enough so that by the time he's ready for them, my Ferals were already dead, and overall, my opponent just outplayed me. But it was a fantastic game. I learned a lot. It was a really great game. It's one of my favorite games out here. So after that, it brought me to the end of the first day, so I had one more game to play, and I ended up playing a Dark Warriors of the Plague Gods, or Pestilence Gods, and this is one of the best painted armies in my opinion. You can see he has the old gray skull there, castle there with his great army, which is very well painted. For this one, if you watch this battle report, this is actually my least favorite battle. Not to say anything against my opponent. My opponent was a fantastic player. His army was fantastic, and it was really well done. He just got unlucky, basically, and I ended up overrunning all three of his units with my feral orcs. And once they got through all three of them, that was it. I mean, he has those three big blocks, and all three of them just got one after the other stacked upon, overrun by my iron orcs. Excuse me, by my feral orcs. So it ended up being a 20-0 victory. So again, my opponent was a great player. I'd really like to play his army again, and not have the overrun happen, because I think that pretty much just threw the game in my side, and after that my opponent couldn't do anything. So I did feel bad for my opponent, but it was a great game. Like I said, great painted army. So after this, it brought us to the second day, and I was up against an Empire of Sonstal army, another very well painted army. This army actually won Best Paint, so I put my vote towards this army. The second one was the Pestilence, but I thought this one, at least for me, was slightly better. I might be slightly biased because I do collect Empire, or the Empire of Sonstal, so I think that definitely kind of hedged my bet a little bit towards this army. But it's a very well painted army, very well established army. My army, which I play, is actually very similar to this list, so I was both very excited about playing it, and at the same time I felt this army had everything to counter my army. So I was very nervous. I thought it was going to be a massacre, honestly, when I went into this battle. But this was my favorite game because really it was a neck and neck. It was very close, and it ended up being a 10-10 draw. So I felt very relieved. I would definitely take that from this list because, again, I felt this list really had everything to defeat my list. So I think having a 10-10 draw was very lucky for me, and so I was very happy with this game. So after that, that put me on the top table in either first or second place. So I was very well close there, and I was playing a Skaven player. And unfortunately, I never got a picture of his army when it was set up, but here's just one of the pictures after he just overran my feral orcs. You can see his two Skaven units coming there. This ended up not working out the way I wanted it to. A couple of reasons for that. One is I think my opponent just outplayed me, so that happens. You get outplayed by a better general, you're going to lose. It happens in real life too. The second thing is I was very unfamiliar with the Vermin Swarm. I've only played them once before, and that was in 8th edition, so I didn't know a lot of what they had. I tried to counteract things, but really, without knowing exactly how they would work, I kind of had to make some guesses. But overall, like I said, it was a very good game. I definitely enjoyed it. I'd really like to play this army again and my opponent again, because now that I know a little bit more about it, I think if we did round 2, I think I could hopefully perform a little bit better than I did for this one. So this one ended up being a 5-15 defeat. So that means I lost 2, I won 2, and I did 1 draw. So for final standings, I ended up being the 4th best general. I was beaten out by the Empire player, the Skaven player, and a Dark Elf player. I was 6th best in paint, and by the way, there was 10 of us. So for the general, I was slightly above average. For best paint, I was slightly below average, which I know I'm not the best painter, but I thought I'd do a little bit better than that. But oh well, what can you do? I guess that just inspires me to do a little bit better. And then I was given 2nd best sport, so I felt pretty happy about that. I'm glad people seem to think I'm a nice person. Glad I managed to play that off pretty well. But yeah, as I said, the first place for the general was a Dark Elf player, and I didn't actually get to fight the army, but I did take a picture of it. So here was the grand winner of the OFCC tournament, Dark Elves. You can kind of see his list. I also didn't play it, so I don't know exactly what it is. But yeah, one of my best friend who came out to the tournament played this army. He said it was a pretty good army. It overran him and squished him pretty well. But it looks like a very nice army, very well painted. So for the tournament as a whole, I think the unit or the thing that made my army or lost my army was my Barrel Orc Horde. So I'm giving my tournament MVP to my Sharnuk's Horde. So if we go look through the battles, in the first battle and in the third battle where I did 20-0 tablings, my Feral Orcs did all the heavy lifting. They wiped out the big units, and they survived through the end of the game. In the one I was in a draw with, the Feral Orcs were alive, but they never got into large combats, and they never managed to earn the points. And in the 2 games that I lost, both of those times my Feral Orcs broke from combat, and that was the backbone of my army, and once they broke, it was pretty much downhill from there. So these guys were both the key to my survival, as well as the keystone to my defeat if I lost them. So But overall, I really enjoyed taking them. I thought they did a fantastic job. I actually managed to pick up 2 more boxes of Feral Orcs from a guy who was playing 40k there, but was trying to get rid of some Feral Orcs. So I picked up 2 more boxes of those guys. So I think in the future I may be running 2 hordes. Obviously, one will have to be regular Orcs, Ferals, but the other one can be the Ed Bashers. So just looking back at the tournament, like I said, it was a fantastic time. I really enjoyed it. They did a great job hosting it and did a great job for turnout. Unfortunately, there was only 10 of us who came out to the 9th age, so I really hope that we can get more players involved, especially up here in the Pacific Northwest. I think there's going to be another tournament coming up, I want to say next spring, so anybody in the Pacific Northwest, start thinking about maybe trying to build an army for a tournament in the spring. I heard that might be up near Seattle somewhere, so again, this is just kind of all hearsay, so I'm not 100% sure. But the OFCC again will probably be next July, so if, at least maybe you can come out for that in Vancouver, Washington. So looking back, I thought my army performed pretty well. I had, let's see, on the 4th video, I had a couple comments saying that because I had a unit, well, my Feral has been Feral Orcs, they are frenzied, so they charged when I didn't want them to charge once, and then because I had the Wizarding Hood on my Iron Orcs, it made them stupid for a turn, which could have possibly turned the game in my favor. So, I mean, those are definitely, but that was 1 game out of 5. So, and then I'm also Orcs and Goblins. Orcs and Goblins are not the most reliable army. So I think I have to consider that, or that needs to be considered when you're looking at armies. Is Orcs and Goblins, at least for me, Orcs and Goblins are an army which can do crazy good, or it can do crazy bad. They're just the crazy guys. They can, they'll not the most reliable army. If you want to take a reliable army, I would take Empire of Sunstal. They're much more reliable. I know what they're going to do. They can do it pretty much every turn. But Orcs and Goblins, I feel like they're the ace in the hole. Sometimes that ace can be what you need. Sometimes it can't be. But it happens. I think if I was going to redo this tournament, I think I would either, well, this army is based on Feral Orcs, so I wouldn't get rid of them for this army. I might take the Wizarding Hood off my Iron Orc. So the Iron Orcs for this army were supposed to be my keystone players. While everything else was somewhat random, my Iron Orcs were supposed to be more or less the unit that I could always rely upon. That didn't work so well when I put the character with the Wizarding Hood inside of it. So if I was to redo this army, I might either put him in a different unit or put a different character in them so that they still gain their bodyguard, but they aren't stupid. So that way they are always still the reliable unit. So being crazy is okay, but being too crazy is could push the balance out of your favor. So I think if I was to go back and redo this, that's what I might do. Is I'd keep with the feral theme, because the ferals are fantastic. Sure, they're frenzied and they sometimes will charge things you don't want them to, but it's a risk you take with them. But I think for the Iron Orcs, I might take that Wizarding Hood off so that they become the reliable unit I need them to be. But that's pretty much all I have here. I have one more slide. So those of you who watch my channel, so those of you 45 subscribers, tell your friends. For one thing, the next battle, which I'm going to put up probably later this weekend, is an Orcs and Goblin army. It's a 1500 point Feral Orc army with more Feral Orcs since I got 2 more boxes. But I think I'm going to shelve my Orcs for a while, and I think I'm going to go back to Empire of Sonstal. So that'll probably be the army I try to take to the next tournament in spring. We'll see how that goes, if I can paint them in time. But to give you an idea of where I'm going on my channel, so I really like themed armies, I really like themed lists, I really like themed games. And to go into a more themed game is to also do a campaign where you have a list of battles and it's all very thematic, and you have named characters, you have named units that can earn experience and such like that. So to give you guys a little sneak peek of what I'm planning to do on my channel for the next few months or so is an invasion of Lustria. So I'm going to be doing my Empire of Sonstal, and my opponent, who often plays Lizardman, is going to be defending, and I'm going to be doing an invasion in Lustria to try to get some gold and then get out with the gold without losing too many bodies. But yeah, so that's all I have here. So if you guys could hit like and subscribe, as always, that'd be fantastic. And if you guys have any comments or suggestions, please put those in the comment section below. And until then, game on.